We have a fun tradition that was passed down from my husband's family. When he was little, his mom would often make strawberry shortcake for dinner, not as dessert, but for dinner. So I think that's what we're gonna do tonight. I think we kind of hit all the basic food groups, and I can't think of a better way to highlight these gorgeous fresh berries. To get started, the first thing I'm going to do is get some strawberries macerating in a bowl. Macerating is really just adding some sugar to the berries. It brings out the juices and makes them easier to smash. So I always like to get that started first and let them sit while I'm making the biscuits. I don't like to waste anything, so these tops I'm gonna put in a bowl and I'm gonna save them for the chickens. I might have been a little generous cutting the tops off, but I'm gonna do something fun with these later that the chickens are going to love. I'm gonna add these to the bowl, and then I'm just gonna mash them up a little bit. Depending on how fresh they are and how sweet they seem, I'll add maybe a tablespoon of sugar, see how that goes. But it really depends on the time of season and how fresh the berries are, or how sweet you want your shortcake to be. I like to smash them instead of slicing them. I just think it gives the shortcake more rustic look and texture, but I don't want them to be completely pulpy. I want some chunks still in there. Add a little bit more sugar. So that looks pretty good. They're sort of mushy, kind of pulpy, and I'm just gonna let them sit and let all the sugar and strawberries just kind of mix together while I make the biscuits. These biscuits are really easy to make. I think they go really well with the strawberries because they've got a little substance to them. And what I like about them is they use a local product that's made right in the town next over, Bakewell cream, which is sort of a baking powder that's a local Maine baking powder. And if you can't find Bakewell cream, you can absolutely substitute baking powder in it, but it makes really super fluffy, high biscuits. So first I'm going to mix my dry ingredients. So I'm gonna start with 4 cups of flour in my bowl. I don't think you're really baking unless you get flour everywhere. And it's always best to spoon it into your cup and then level the top off instead of scooping your cup into the flour because it can compact it. With these, it's not super important because this isn't really heavy duty baking, but when you're baking, it's always a good idea to measure your flour accurately. So there's 4 cups of flour. Next, I'm going to put in 4 teaspoons of the Bakewell cream. And as I mentioned, you can use baking powder as a substitute instead. And then 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Then I'm going to add a stick of unsalted butter. And at this point, I'm going to use my pastry cutter to just mix the butter in and get it incorporated into the dry ingredients. I've got my oven preheated to 475 degrees. It takes a while to heat up, so if I preheat it when I start my biscuits, usually by the time I have the dough done, the oven's ready. All right, that's all mixed in pretty well. Now I'm going to add my wet ingredients. So I have a 1.5 cups of milk. I'm just gonna pour that in. And then I've got some vanilla bean paste. Vanilla bean paste is sort of like liquid vanilla extract. I'm gonna add about a teaspoon, but it's thicker and it has the flecks in it like a vanilla bean would, so it's a lot cheaper than buying vanilla beans, and it gives you those really nice flecks of vanilla that a bean would, that the vanilla extract doesn't give you. You don't get that alcohol taste from it, and I really like the flecks. I'm just gonna stir this up a little bit into a nice dough. This is sort of a wet dough, kind of sticky. I usually end up just using my hands to mix it at this point, and you really don't want to overmix it because you don't want it to get tough. So I just mix it just till the flour and other dry ingredients are incorporated. And we're not rolling it out or anything, so you don't have to worry about having it be a consistency that would roll well. You can see it's just sort of a sticky kind of dough. All right, that looks good. So now I'm just gonna take a quick break, wash all this off my fingers, and get ready to measure out my biscuits. So I've got my baking sheet and I'm going to scoop out the biscuits with an ice cream scoop. It's just easy and I won't get my hands dirty again. So this is going to make hopefully maybe about 8 biscuits. And since they are more rustic, you don't have to really worry about them being perfect. These biscuits are going to rise considerably. Maybe a little smaller than tennis ball size is kind of the size I'm going for. So now I'm going to put them in my preheated oven for 5 minutes, then turn off the heat, leave them in for another 5 minutes, and they're gonna be done. These biscuits look great. They're crunchy on the outside and they're nice and soft and warm on the inside. So I'm just gonna cut them in half, put one in each bowl, and then I'm just gonna put a little pat of butter on top, let that melt into the warm biscuit. It's gonna be so good. My strawberries are nice and juicy. They weren't sitting out for but maybe half an hour, so it really doesn't take long to get those juices out. Nice spoonful of strawberries on each one. And then I just use regular heavy whipping cream and sort of make a little pond or moat, I guess you'd call it, around each one. And then I'm just gonna put a little fresh basil leaf on top just because I happen to have them and it'll add a little pop of color. And I actually like the combination of the savory basil and the sweet strawberries together. So there we go. These are gonna be so delicious for dessert. I keep saying rustic, but it actually makes kind of an elegant little dessert that really doesn't take long to make at all. I'm so glad we got these fresh strawberries because they just were perfect.